Welcome to today's edition of the IntoTexas AI podcast. It's your look at AI news and trends impacting Texas. I'm your host, Shannon Belew. Let's get started. Today, this is another Behind the Headlines episode where we look at a handful of AI stories connected to Texas, but not just the biggest headlines, but the company announcements, policy moves, and research updates that help us understand where AI is actually showing up. And this week, the stories give us a pretty direct picture of where AI is headed in Texas: infrastructure, power demand, public sector technology, enterprise adoption, legal risk, healthcare, and work itself. So let's get into it. The first story is maybe one of the biggest. On June 10th, Governor Greg Abbott recommended a new set of regulations for data centers in Texas. The proposals were aimed at the 2027 legislative session, and they would require new data centers to take on more of the costs tied to their growth. That includes paying for their own electric infrastructure, reporting electricity and water use, using more water efficient cooling systems, addressing noise, and potentially repealing some data center sales tax incentives. Abbott also directed the Public Utility Commission of Texas and ERCOT to make sure the cost of new infrastructure needed for data centers is not pushed onto residential ratepayers. That was already a major change in tone. Texas has spent years positioning itself as a business friendly destination for technology companies, cloud computing, data centers specifically, and in general AI infrastructure. Now, the state is also asking a more practical question. As this build out accelerates, what should these companies be responsible for? Well, Texas regulators didn't waste any time and have taken another step. On June 18th, the Public Utility Commission approved ERCOT's new framework for managing large power users, including data centers. The process is called Batch Zero, and it groups qualified projects of at least 75 megawatts into a single study so ERCOT can evaluate grid capacity, future demand, and needed transmission upgrades in a more organized way. Now, Reuters reported that ERCOT is evaluating more than 438,000 megawatts in large load requests, with about 89% tied to data centers. ERCOT expects to notify these Batch Zero participants of their classification by August of this year, with a finalized transmission plan expected in fall of 2027. That does not settle the policy debate around data centers, water, local control, or tax incentives, but it does show the grid side of the issue is already moving, even before the legislature takes up broader data center rules in 2027. Right? And that is the important shift here. AI infrastructure is no longer just about economic development at the state level. It's also about grid planning, water, and even ratepayers and the impact to them. Now, for communities at the center of many data center buildouts, these are many of the same things residents have been asking about and worried about. So that all connects directly to the next announcement. On June 11th, Meta and RWE announced a long term power purchase agreement tied to the Rabbit's Foot Solar Project in Bowie County in Northeast Texas. The project is a 298 megawatt solar facility. It began construction earlier this year and is expected to begin commercial operation by the end of next year. According to the announcement, the project is expected to create nearly 200 construction jobs and generate more than $50 million in long term tax revenue over 40 years for Bowie County, DeKalb ISD, Texarkana College, and Emergency District Number 6. Now, this is also the fourth power purchase agreement between Meta and RWE since 2024. Together, those agreements now total 872 megawatts. So, in the same week that we're seeing the state of Texas talking about how to manage data center demand better, Meta is also locking in long term renewable power in North Texas. And that is the shape of the AI infrastructure conversation right now. It's not just more data centers are coming, it's where the power comes from, who builds it, who benefits locally or doesn't, and how the economics line up over time. Now, the next story moves from infrastructure to enterprise AI. Tyler Technologies held its 2026 Investor Day on June 9th in Frisco. Tyler is based in Plano and is one of, you could say, more important public sector technology companies in the country right now. Its software is used by cities, counties, courts, school systems, and government agencies. At Investor Day, the company focused on its next phase of SaaS growth, its transactions platform, its AI strategy, and its 2030 vision. Now, one detail that stood out is that Tyler's agenda included a dedicated section titled AI Makes Tyler a Stronger Company, led by Franklin Williams, who was just named Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer in May of this year. Now, that's definitely a pattern we've seen with other companies. AI is not being treated as a side feature or a marketing add on. It is being folded truly into the strategic roadmap of the company. And in this case, it's a company that supports public sector operations. And when public sector technology companies adopt AI, the use cases usually aren't abstract. They can touch permitting, payments, courts, public records, licensing, and just other day to day government workflows. So, this is one of those stories that may not look flashy or incredibly interesting from the outside, but it's worth watching closely. If AI is going to reshape how government work gets done, companies like Tyler will be part of that story. And it's a story that could one day impact all of us. Now, the next story is a legal one. And I think it's maybe one of the more interesting ones that really didn't get a lot of attention in the news. The Texas Business Court has weighed in on whether conversations with AI tools like ChatGPT can be discoverable in litigation. Now, according to legal summaries published in June, Judge Grant Dorfman of the Texas Business Court's 11th Division entered a June 3rd minute entry ruling that a non lawyer's ChatGPT conversations prepared in anticipation of litigation could qualify as protected attorney work product under Texas procedural rules. Now, the case is Tate Group Automotive LLC versus Legacy Automotive Capital LLC. Now, this does not settle the issue nationally, of course. Courts are still working through how AI prompts, AI outputs, and chatbot conversations fit into existing rules around privilege, work product, confidentiality, and discovery when it comes to legal cases. But it is an important Texas development because for many companies, this gets practical very quickly. Employees are using AI tools to brainstorm, summarize, prepare, analyze, and even problem solve. And so some of that use may be harmless, but it could also involve sensitive business information, and some of it may involve legal strategy. So once litigation begins, the question becomes, are those AI conversations private? Are they protected? Are they discoverable? Or something somewhere in between. Now, that's not a hypothetical question anymore. It's already showing up in court. So, again, another story that I think will potentially have a bigger impact on our legal system as we go down the road, and certainly worth watching. All right, now let's shift to cybersecurity. CrowdStrike just released its 2026 Technology Threat Landscape Report. CrowdStrike, as you know, is headquartered in Austin, and the report focuses on how technology companies are being targeted as AI becomes more central to global competition. Now, the company said technology is now the world's most targeted industry, and that adversaries are exploiting both the AI being built and the tools used to build it. CrowdStrike also reported that China Nexus adversaries drove more than 58% of state sponsored targeted intrusions against the technology sector. Reuters' coverage of the report framed it around espionage risk, especially for technology companies involved in artificial intelligence, in semiconductors, software, hardware, and just general IT services. I think that's all worth noting because AI companies are not just building products, they're also holding a lot of valuable data of AI models, research, code, infrastructure access, and intellectual property in general. So, in the current environment, those assets become targets. Now, a related Texas cybersecurity story comes from Zimperium. And this is a company that's headquartered in Dallas. It was named a leader in QKS Group's 2026 Spark Matrix for in app protection platforms. The company focuses on mobile app security, which includes AI powered detection and protection embedded directly inside mobile applications. And that's where cybersecurity is headed. So AI is part of the risk, but it's also part of the response. Let's move into workforce and healthcare. Waco based Access Care released survey findings last week around June 9th, showing that home care agencies are moving from AI exploration to adoption. The survey included more than 400 home care industry leaders, and according to results, 91% of respondents are already using or planning to use AI for operations management, and then 92% are confident that AI will deliver measurable value to their organizations. This is interesting on a couple of points. One, I think the confidence level from this survey in this sector is much higher than some of the recent reports that we've seen covering the services sector, manufacturing. So it's really interesting, this large confidence level about not only AI adoption, but the outcomes that they think they're going to get from it. So again, just kind of interesting to note. The other thing is I think when you consider, what home care is, it's not usually the first industry where people think about AI and how you can use that to improve operations. But this is a great example of where it can show up operationally from a scheduling standpoint, staffing, care coordination, billing, documentation, client communication, routing, and even general reporting. So, again, these aren't futuristic use cases, they are everyday operational pain points. Now, home care is a workforce heavy industry. So, when AI enters that environment, the question is not only whether the technology works, but it's how it changes the work for caregivers and coordinators and families themselves. There were also two other healthcare AI updates that I think are worth noting. UTMB announced that Vibhuti Gupta, PhD, received a University of Texas System Rising Stars Award that will support the launch of the DIVA AI Lab. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's DIVA-AI Lab. The lab will focus on multimodal AI methods that bring together different types of medical data, including medical images, clinical notes, genomics, wearables, and other patient data, while also working on how to interpret all of that data. That last part is important. In healthcare, it's not enough for an AI model to just produce an answer. Clinicians need to understand and trust and be able to evaluate the output. So, this lab is not just about building bigger models, it's about making AI more usable and understandable in clinical and research settings. So, very important. The other story, it's an announcement from Perimeter Medical Imaging AI, which is based in both Toronto and also in Dallas. Perimeter announced it was selected for Innovate Pilot Fund support to advanced AI for breast cancer surgery. The company said its Claire device had received FDA approval earlier this year as an AI enabled imaging device for use during breast cancer surgery. This is a very specific use case, and that's what makes it really interesting to me. It's AI moving into a clinical workflow during surgery where the stakes are immediate and real, and the need for trust is so high and absolutely essential. So if you look across the healthcare stories this week, you can see a few different paths. You've got Access Care, which is focused on operational AI and home care. Then there's UTMB, which is looking at those multimodal modeling and interpretation of all the data. And Perimeter, which is focused on an AI enabled imaging inside the surgical workflow. Different parts of healthcare, different AI use cases, same broader direction, right? AI is becoming embedded into the systems around care. Now, I love seeing a collection of these types of stories. They show that AI truly is becoming part of our daily operating environment in so many different ways. And that's what it makes this so exciting for all of us. Now, that's it for today's episode of IntoTexas AI podcast. And as always, I appreciate you spending time with us and listening, contributing with your comments. And if you want to continue getting insights on how AI is reshaping Texas, and I invite you to continue listening again, please share and please subscribe. I'm Shannon Belew. I'll see you next time.